Namaste. We have heard of children, or even in some cases adults, who like to eat unedible items like chalk or wooden sticks. This is a case of feeding and eating disorder. This chapter in DSM 5 deals with disorders related to feeding or eating. To discuss the subject today, we have with us psychoanalysis consultant Mr. Himanshu Vaidya. Namaste.
Namaste.
Mr. Vaidya, can we start with what feeding and eating disorders are all about?
Uh, these are disorders which pertain to eating too much, eating too less, eating in a wrong way, or eating the wrong things.
Mhm.
And these disorders are not as a result of very young age or very old age or any biological factor. In absence of any biological determinant, these problems are still there, where we realize that some psychopathological phenomena is distorting the working of a normal biological process otherwise. This range of disorders, either in terms of eating oneself or feeding to somebody else, are termed as eating and feeding disorders.
Hmm. So, what disorders does this chapter cover?
This chapter covers first the disorder of not eating at all, which they call anorexia nervosa. Second, of restricting one's food intake to specific items, which is called uh, restrictive disorder, where you don't eat many of the things which are otherwise necessary for a human being.
Mhm.
So you restrict the intake of foods.
Right.
Third is rumination disorder, where you don't eat the right way. After eating, you try to bring up the food again and re-chew the food
Hmm.
as though you were ruminating by chewing the food.
Hmm.
Fourth is uh, anorexia nervosa, where you don't eat at all. Sorry, anorexia bulimia,
Bulimia.
where you eat too much.
Hmm.
The first one we saw anorexia nervosa, you don't eat at all or you eat very less. Okay? You eat very less in that. And anorexia bulimia, you eat too much.
Mhm.
So you eat too much, and after eating too much, you feel extremely guilty.
All right.
Not only that, you undertake many measures in order to overcome the binge eating that you have done.
Mhm.
And you feel extremely guilty or uncomfortable with regard to your body.
Okay.
So, first you eat too much, and then you try to do something to undo the effects of eating too much.
Mhm.
This is anorexia bulimia.
Mhm.
Then you have binge eating. So, in binge eating, you eat too much, and the way you eat is slightly different. There is some sort of a manic flavor to the way you eat. You eat very fast,
Mhm.
you are full of energy, the concentration is completely on eating, but uh, there is no uh, measure to overcome the binge eating that you do,
Mhm.
unlike in anorexia bulimia.
Right.
So there is a binge eating which is also overeating, but in a short span of time. So in any given time, not across the whole day, but
Mhm.
in any given time, say in 2 hours, you eat too much, and then you don't feel guilty or trying to undo the effects, like in case of bulimia.
Bulimia.
So binge eating and bulimia both are overeating disorders, but of different sorts.
Hmm.
And then you have pica. Pica is a disorder of eating something non-edible.
Mm-hmm.
So it may be chalks, it may be wood, it may be some cellulose leaves or something. But
Right.
what is not supposed to be eaten, you start eating, and you don't take the species congruent food. You take something which otherwise is thought of to be inedible. So this is pica. Now, if you look at this whole spectrum, anorexia, bulimia, anorexia nervosa, not eating or eating very less,
Mm-hmm.
anorexia, bulimia, eating too much and then feeling guilty.
Mm-hmm.
In anorexia nervosa and bulimia, there is an intense uh, preoccupation with one's body being not good enough.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So, anorexia nervosa, you try to make the body good enough by not eating.
Mm-hmm.
And in anorexia, bulimia, you are just not able to control yourself, and then you try to make the body good enough.
All right.
So there is some sort of uh, uh, body-related inferiority in both anorexia nervosa and anorexia bulimia.
Mm-hmm.
Some sort of a manic flavor in binge eating, some sort of exactly opposite to manic flavor, the ruminating dysphoric flavor
Mm-hmm.
in rumination disorder, where you keep rechewing whole thing again and again,
Right.
almost like a, a
Cattles.
melancholic person.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, almost like a cattle, and in Freud's terms, almost like a melancholic person. Okay? Uh, Bringing back those melancholic memories again and again and again.
Hmm.
So, this is a range of disorders, and most common, the diagnosis is made if it happens 2 to 3 times a week over a period of 3 months.
All right.
So, this is not a one off thing, it has to repeat itself
Mm-hmm.
twice to thrice a week over a period of 3 months. That is the most common criteria in this chapter.
Right. So, what is the psychoanalytic explanation of causation of feeding and eating disorders?
Uh, Let us take one by one. Anorexia nervosa, not eating or eating too less. Psychoanalysis tells us this may have to do with an extreme inferiority which may emerge out of early life abandonment or object loss, which the person is trying to fix through the body.
Mm-hmm.
So the inferiority is felt with relation to the body. And this inferiority uh, is slightly different, and it's near to but differently tackled compared to a histrionic. The histrionic also feels inferiority related to the body or through the body. The anorexia nervosa person also feels it. One tries to uh, make the body good enough, attractive enough, so that one is appreciated, accepted by others. One is able to bring back those objects one has lost. One is able to sustain interest in oneself to prevent abandonment by being extra interesting. And the anorexia nervosa person does it by giving up food,
Mm.
whereas the histrionic person does it by going over the top in getting attention and attraction. The anorexia nervosa can also be a measure of self-destruction. It may be because of repressed anger or repressed pain.
Hmm.
If it is out of repressed anger, we may be looking at self-destruction. If it is out of pain, it may be because of withdrawal and resignation. Often it is with extreme inferiority that something is wrong with me, I am not good enough.
Hmm.
It may also be in response to the pain of weaning of the child in a very non-smooth, non- non-calibrated manner in early childhood.
Mm-hmm.
That may put in the child extreme anger and pain, and he may refuse to take any nourishment because the process of taking nourishment has brought him so much of pain and rejection.
Right.
So those are some of the issues. It may also be a cry for help that
Mm-hmm.
if I don't eat enough, my parents will come and they will provide me with a good environment and they will be good to me.
Mm-hmm.
So it may be a cry for parents. It may be a cry for parents to be good parents. It may be a cry to tell everyone how empty the inside is, and one may be communicating that emptiness and the difficulty inside by creating it in the physical body. It
Mm.
may be because of deep disappointment of the world, right, that one does not feel like relishing the world any more. And we have to be clear here that we diagnose the food and elimination disorders,
Mm.
right, only after depression and everything else has been ruled out.
Right. Okay.
So, not eating because of depression is one thing, and if depression is not there and then you don't eat, then there is a possibility of a feeding disorder. So, that is
Right.
with regard to the anorexia nervosa.
Mm-hmm.
With regard to restrictive food disorder, it has to essentially do with displacement of something morally unacceptable or something disgusting
Mm-hmm.
onto some food items.
Okay.
Here, the person rejects something because of some sensual or sensory characteristic of the food. Maybe the color,
Mm-hmm.
maybe the shape, maybe the size, maybe the touch.
Mm-hmm.
For example, many people would reject uh, at certain points in their time, in their life, milk.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? They don't like to drink milk, which otherwise is very nourishing to the body.
Mm.
But they develop a hatred or a disgust for milk.
That's very
And
common.
that is because, yeah, and that has something to do with some disgusting memories related to the mother or the breast or the act of feeding or the very uncalibrated way in which the weaning has happened.
Mm-hmm.
So the mother may be using some bitter powder for weaning the child away, and that creates a long-standing disgust with milk.
Mm-hmm.
So this may be some of the reasons for. Then you have the sexual displacements, that some morally unacceptable sexual desire may get somehow associated with some food item because that food item reminds the person of some sexual object or some sexual scene or some sexual word, and therefore there is a disgust towards that object.
Uh-huh.
There may be fear involved. So something inside, it is like phobia, that
Mm-hmm.
something inside is projected onto a food item and then you restrict the intake of that food item.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, yeah. So this is with regard to the second one. It's essentially displacement of some uh, unpleasant feeling or some association of an unpleasant event is evoked looking at that object, and
Mm.
therefore the intake is restricted. The third one is you can take up of anorexia bulimia. That may be because of an emptiness, and to fill up the emptiness inside, you stuff yourself with food,
Mm.
which is also a dynamic we see in depression.
Mm.
That when you feel depressed, people eat too much, especially people like to eat chocolates or people like to eat sweets.
Mm.
They stuff themselves to fill up that emptiness and the bitterness inside. Uh, Similarly, we have in bulimia filling up the emptiness inside with food.
Mm-hmm.
It may be an attempt to incorporate objects inside of you because of that emptiness of objects.
Right.
It may be a way to ward off intense feelings of pain with pleasure. That if you don't indulge in this pleasure, too much of pain will flow out, and you have to sort of distract yourself from that pain inside with some object of pleasure. So it's a distraction.
Mm-hmm.
It can also be, in certain cases, even denial of object loss. That you see some person eating too much, and that person is no more. So then what you do is you start eating too much in order to deny the loss of that person.
Mm-hmm.
So all of this may be the uh, it may be also be an attempt to fill up oneself with strength and overcome the inferiority. So all of this might be reasons for bulimia.
Mm-hmm.
Then we come to binge eating. Binge eating has all these elements, but what is very common is object gain and loss, denial of object loss.
Okay.
Because in binge eating, this is quite common that the person who indulges in binge eating has seen somebody, in most cases, not most cases, but in many cases, who was admired by him,
Mm-hmm.
close to him, and who is no longer with him.
Mm-hmm.
And
Is it like
therefore,
an act of compensation?
yes, yes.
Mm-hmm.
So you do what somebody else used to do in order to deny his absence.
Right.
It's a way of coping up with loss that you cannot process the loss. So you deny the loss
Mm-hmm.
by impersonating as that person.
Mm-hmm.
So this, and also the manic element of object gain, that somehow you have gained an object of desire and therefore you are going manic.
Mm-hmm.
But this is not the manic that you are talking about in bipolarity, where
Right.
actually the desire for food goes low.
Okay.
This is a different sort of exhilaration, not exhilaration, but a different sort of uh, a very vigorous, powering drive that pushes you into eating.
Mm-hmm.
So it
Right.
is a manic drive in the sense that it is a very vigorous, uncontrollable drive, but not manic in the classical sense of the term.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the binge eating part.
Mm-hmm.
Binge eating part can also be a pleasure movement,
Mm.
that a person may be denying pleasure to himself across the day or denying regular intake of food across the day, and towards the end, in the night especially,
Mm.
the 2 hours of binge eating happens.
Mm.
So that may also be a reason for binge eating.
Right.
Coming to uh, rumination, this is a classical case of actual rumination and how they have named this disorder.
Okay.
Actually, this should have been named as regurgitation disorder,
Okay.
where you regurgitate the whole thing.
Hmm.
But they have rightly named it rumination because I think this has to do with rumination.
Mm-hmm.
That while you are doing that physical process, psychologically, some rumination is going on.
Right.
And you are ruminating some melancholic event which requires to be processed repeatedly.
Mm-hmm.
And that may have to do with object loss, may have to do with repressed pain, repressed anger, uh, loss of opportunities, loss of ambitions and defeats of life. So some tragic event has happened which you are repeatedly unconsciously processing,
Mm-hmm.
the conscious outcome of which happens in the form of this disorder.
Hmm.
Then we come to the
Pica.
pica, where you eat non-edible food items.
Hmm.
And this is almost like a fetish applied to food kind of situation.
Right.
And this is where the substitution happens because of variety of reasons.
Mm-hmm.
One, it can be an attempt at self-destruction.
Mm-hmm.
Two, it can be attempt at defiance
Okay.
of the parent figures or of the society.
Mm-hmm.
Three, it may be punishing oneself because of guilt. Fourth, it may be a transference or projection onto those objects of something very relishable.
Hmm.
So it may look like a piece of wood, but unconsciously the person may be projecting the good breast onto it.
Okay.
So unconsciously he sees that as a good breast, whereas consciously it is a piece of wood. And then the person wants to make that one's own by eating it.
Hmm.
Then you have uh, it may be projection of the unwanted parent figure that you want to destroy.
Mm-hmm.
It may be a way of restoring objects inside, and this somehow is associated to some good object of the past.
Hmm.
So this is very important. In Pika, which
Hmm.
object do you choose
Okay.
and which
Under.
objects you don't choose?
Hmm. So a lot of
And
condensation
there,
can take place there symbolically.
yes, yes, yes. And therefore, free associations related to the object of choice in Pika is very essential.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So this is how we would look at this element of uh, Pika. And similarly, we have the psychoanalytic explanations of uh, all of them that we have discussed by and large. What we
Mm-hmm.
see is essentially deprivation, displacement, and an attempt to fill up one's emptiness and inferiority,
Hmm.
or to call upon parents or the good parents, or to have some moments of pleasure in an otherwise extremely painful unconscious.
Hmm.
So these are the usual explanations that psychoanalysis gives for the feeding and eating disorders.
Seems very interesting. When we talk about the causation, how does psychoanalysis now proceed with the healing of these feeding and eating disorders?
This is a right area for psychoanalysis
Mhm.
because this is not something which anybody has learned because of wrong behavioral training.
Hmm.
It is something which has happened unconsciously in the person, and the behavior is because of result of an unconscious process.
Hmm.
So a right arena for psychoanalysis. What psychoanalysis does is we are not dealing here in extremely fragile people.
Hmm.
So it is not essential that we should always start with a cohesion approach and then take the school we want,
Okay.
which is the case in case of psychosis or high anxiety disorders or dissociative disorders, where we are dealing with very fragile patients. When it comes to eating and feeding disorders, we can straight away start with whatever school we feel fits in the best. And we would be looking to uh, 1 to 2 sessions, one session per week for 6 months in mild cases, and 2 sessions per week, 1 year for very severe cases.
Mm-hmm.
But it is not going to be a very long therapy. The results are likely to come in very early one of the not difficult disorders to treat. This is also an area where the behavioral therapy also gets very good results complementing the psychoanalytic psychotherapy.
And when we talk about the holistic healing frame, is there a way holistic healing, as you mentioned, behavioral and psychoanalytic approaches can really be very helpful out here? When we come to holistic healing approach, how can it help in healing of feeding and eating disorders?
Uh, when we are looking at the emptiness inside, or the pain inside, or the anger inside, we can use techniques of visualization, psychodrama, uh, behavioral techniques, homeopathy. We can also use Reiki and pranic healing for catharsis. And apart from these techniques, social groups are very important. The social support is very important because these are socially very embarrassing kind of disorders.
True.
Especially the rumination and pica are extremely embarrassing disorders. And therefore, acceptance and support from social groups is also very important apart from family support for the person to overcome these disorders.
And when it comes to an individual, how is patient education important in the context of this disorder?
First, when we educate the patient, the anxiety reduces because he doesn't feel he has gone completely crazy. Especially in rumination and pica, where otherwise it looks, although as from a distance, as though you are dealing with a completely psychotic person, which is not the case.
True.
So it's very essential to psychologically rehabilitate the person, allow him to get back his confidence by explaining to him what has happened to him and what is it all about. And that rehabilitation is very essential in a psychological sense. Secondly, the triggers of what aggravate and what heal are very important. If we psychoeducate the patient well, he can make a note of the aggravating and the healing factors. Not only in terms of do's and don'ts, it also helps in knowing the unconscious dynamic by knowing what is aggravating and what is healing. It's also important that the patient is able to use holistic healing and go to right social groups. If we educate him rightly and we support him rightly to get it accomplished.
Right.
He is also able to monitor himself better, report right things to the healer or the doctor, whoever is treating him, so that uh, the healer can focus on what works and what does not work. And lastly, he should be able to have good self-acceptance, which is very necessary, so that he does not feel anger towards himself and start beating himself instead of using that energy to heal oneself.
And how would a family member of caregivers should be handled if they are helping someone to deal with this disorder?
I think the first thing is acceptance with compassion, because the first thing the family members will usually do is to criticize and pounce upon the person and get into a fault finding and advisory mode. We have to educate the family members that the roots are deeper. It is not something the person can wish away or just will it to happen. The person needs deeper therapy, deeper self-work. So this is not a fault-finding, advising situation. The person needs lot of acceptance and not mockery, which is often the case in these situations. That the family members respond with mocking the person, making fun of the person, criticizing the person. Instead of that, what we require is acceptance, compassion, and support. This is one. Two, family members can then more accurately write down what works and what does not work, what aggravates and what calms down the person, what reduces the intensity. Family members also need to take a note of the frequency of the difficulty, because the healing will happen with the frequency reducing down and aggravation will be increasing of the frequency. So family members have to keep a tab on that. Family members also have to help the person get into right holistic healing groups, if possible learn it itself himself, and also social support groups if they are there in the city. Lastly, the family members may have to readjust their social schedules or their social activities so that the person is not embarrassed in front of others. And over a period of time, usually it does not happen, but if it goes on for a long term, family members should not develop secondary problems of mild anxiety, mild depression, or mild social shame because of this problem with their
loved ones.
children.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's so very important, especially when we talk about the current times when people are so obsessed with their looks. Many teenagers, they develop anorexia nervosa. They don't want to eat because they want to have size 0 or so-called stereotype body. No, I want to look very slim, ultra slim, and they get into the wrong eating disorders and patterns. Especially people try to, they develop a self-coping mechanism by eating a lot, as you mentioned about binge eating. So these things are so much a part of our daily lives. We see people doing all these things around us, and how important it is to be diagnosed, identified, and get a proper cure. Thank you, Mr. Vedya, for sharing your knowledge with us on such an important topic. Thank you so much. We have covered today feeding and eating disorders. In the subsequent videos, we will be covering other disorders from DSM-5 in the same way. Do watch our coming videos and write to us at hvindia@gmail.com. Namaste.
Namaste.